Was it a good idea to hire two-time Coach of the Year Kevin Stefanski? Can they resuscitate Tua Tagovailoa's career? Also, is it a good idea to have two injury-prone quarterbacks playing quarterback for you? This and so much more this year in 2026. The Falcons, they go ahead and they fire their GM and head coach. They bring in a new GM and head coach with a nice little triad, right? They move on for Raheem Morris. They bring in Kevin Stefanski. This new combination of Ian Cunningham from the Bears and Matt Ryan being the president and getting final say. They come in, they don't get a first-round pick because that was traded last year to get Pierce, the edge rusher who they drafted in the first round. They traded up to the LA Rams. That would have been the 13th overall pick this year. The new administration with the Falcons had a lot to deal with coming into this year, right? They had to go ahead and adjust without having a first-round pick. They had some guys who left, like David Onyemata, Darnell Mooney, Kirk Cousins, who, again, like there was some theories out there that maybe like Stefanski would keep Kirky, right? Like they're friends. They know each other, but they move on. Kirk leaves. Felt like it was time. I think bringing in Tua after he was released from Miami at least gave him hope for the future, right? Because if Tua pans out, you can at least extend him and maybe have an option down the line. He works well in this offense almost as well as Kirk does coming off the Penix injury. I think Penix, very good downfield thrower, still struggles a lot throwing over the middle of the field. And he's got some of the strengths that Flacco had, but minus the footwork for playing under center. Now there's a lot of talk that Penix is trying to be the under center guy because he has to under this situation. But he's also still recovering from his injury with the ACL. I think his quarterback battle is kind of interesting, right? Two very injury-prone guys. They, so much so they had to bring in Cooper Rush just a couple weeks ago just to be like, hey, guys, like we need another dude who actually kind of can run the offense. Let's bring in like a backup that's not doing anything. So otherwise, it'd be their third string dude who's just kind of like, guys, I'm not even supposed to be here today. They wanted somebody semi-competent in practice. But I digress. I like the design of the team. It's a fun design team. You look at the offensive line. Although, again, now we're almost working off an offensive line of two administrations ago with Lindstrom, and Jake Matthews has been there forever. He's kind of getting a little bit long in the tooth. The good thing is Stefanski brought along an old friend of his, Mr. Bill Callahan. Good at coaching up solid to good offensive linemen and even getting some better play out of some weaker offensive linemen out there occasionally. And we know he works well in the Stefanski system because he kind of worked well when they had this kind of similar idea when they were in Cleveland with Baker and running a lot of these, the Shanahan, Kubiak style offense. Now, my real question with Stefanski, can he evolve the offense? And I don't mean evolve it in the way of adapt it to somebody who just doesn't work with it like Deshaun Watson. Sometimes you just need the guys who work for your system. But can you evolve it beyond just the standard stuff, right? We've seen a lot of evolution come out of that offense over the last 5 years, whether it's more use of the fullback, multiple tight ends, which we know Stefanski loves and very Kubiak-esque, the orbit motion and the pre-snap motion and at the snap motion and integrating all of that. That was stuff that Stefanski was not all that good at while he was in Cleveland, coaching up the pre-snap and orbit motion kind of things, being a little bit more creative. The one thing that Stefanski got to be a little creative with is he was, in the early stages, was running a lot more power-designed plays in that early Kubiak evolution because it fit what they had at offensive line, and also because Bill Callahan was a dude who knew how to integrate both of those things, right? He was a guy who liked the power run game, knew how to coach the outside zone game. So you have that run, you have a very good run game script. They weren't able to bring in, their old run game coordinator and running backs coach. I think it was Deuce. He's not coming. They don't have that anymore, but they still have, one of the best offensive line coaches in Bill Callahan, very good at developing dudes, and we've seen it. Now, there's guys who you can't just develop. Like sometimes you just got to figure it out on the field. Like, this isn't working. Hudson, the old offensive lineman who's played around from Cleveland to the Giants. The Giants found out why he didn't work in Cleveland, and now he's like a backup on the Patriots. But I digress. Can Stefanski and Bill do things with this room, not just the offensive line room, which you kind of do start feeling like there's, again, the right tackle retired. Caleb McGarry ended up having some health issues, and it was just kind of an early end to a really good right tackle who developed very well. Again, a former administration piece from, I think McGarry was 2 administrations ago for the Falcons. I'm talking about like he's the president, but I digress. Lindstrom, though, very good right guard, still probably one of the top 2 to 3 right guards in the NFL. Neuzil actually ended up being very good for them after losing significant centers over the years. Again, last year you saw them lose the center that went to the Bears and then retired as well. A lot of these dudes retiring. I can't remember the guy's name because I prepped for the Falcons, and this has been a while since I've talked about him. Bergeron, right, left guard, has played very well. Jake Matthews still playing at a very solid left tackle rate, not the level he was several years ago. They did bring in Jawaan Taylor. They have a few different guys in there to kind of compete for that right tackle spot. Not sure I want to really rely on Jawaan Taylor, but listen, that's all fine and dandy. I like this offensive line room. I think they have to keep on working at it. They didn't have a first-round pick to expend on fixing more of the offensive line. There were some dudes out there they could have probably signed, but I think there's a lot to be done. Now you look at this receiver, and it's weird because we went into this offseason with all right, it's going to be Drake London and nobody else. And Drake London's been a very good receiver. He's developed very well in the NFL, and I think he's easily a top 10 receiver. I think everybody outside of him going into the season was kind of like, going into this offseason was all right, they lost Darnell Mooney. He left in free agency. I kind of like the moves that they did, though. They brought in Jahan Dotson, who had a very interesting first fun year in Washington, right? I saw some what's his development going to be like? And then he, doesn't really fit well in the new coaching staff in Washington. They kick him out, and then he gets traded to the Eagles, where try to break into the Eagles depth chart at receiver back when they had A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. And he had some nice plays last year with the Eagles. I think Stefanski kind of made the right move in saying, guys, I think, or whoever his idea was, Cunningham, Stefanski, Matt Ryan, just being yo, let's get this guy. We saw him have a good rookie year, pretty solid rookie year, had those touchdowns. I think there's something with Jahan Dotson. So they give him a 2-year deal. They bring him in. Olamide Zaccheaus gets to return to Atlanta. I think he's a solid 3, kind of rotational dude, and, play him in the slot. And you need guys like that. You need Zaccheaus in the NFL. But he's not the only guy they got this offseason. And there's a guy making noise. A guy who they drafted in the 3rd round and kind of excited about because I got him in Dynasty. I know nobody wants to hear about your fantasy team. But I digress. I like Mr. Zachariah Branch. You know who turned me on to him? One Mr. Steve Smith Jr., Senior, whatever the last, whatever his suffixes are nowadays. Yeah, he turned me on to him. And by the way, I think it was weird because he kind of backed out. And I'm I actually think Steve Smith got it right. I think Zaccheaus could be, not Zaccheaus, Zachariah Branch, 3rd round wide receiver. I kind of like a lot of what he has to offer. Maybe it'll blow up in my face. We see these speed guys not work all the time. He got a lot of screenshots. I get it. It was a lot of screen game in Atlanta. Some of that had to do with just, but that's one of those things you got to look at. All right, what did the coaching staff ask you to do? Doesn't mean you can't do the other things. So then you look at the tape of the other things and the rare times they pop up, and it's I think he could do it. And I think that's the, and now we're hearing camp beat ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum. He sounds like Tyreek Hill. He looks like Waddle, except he's a little smaller. But I digress. I like the Zachariah Branch when they drafted him. I think that was one of the best picks of their draft class coming into this. I think, Avon Terrell, the back end of that defense is going to be a huge deal, right? They have the Terrell brothers playing corner. I think it's going to matter because that front end looks a little dangerous now, right? The guys who they drafted last year who fixed their edge rush problems, one might be suspended for half the season in James Pierce because of some offseason stuff, and the other one just tore his ACL, is going to be out for the season in Jalen Walker. 2 first-round edge rushers who did change your defense, and now you're kind of back to square one, and how do you fix that in the meantime? You have to play half a season without at least one of those dudes. You're going to play the whole season without the other one. how do you fix this defensive mess? Doralus was like a second-round pick from a couple of years ago. Deshaun Hand's on this team. There's just I look at this D line and I'm starting to go, oh, this isn't going to be good for Atlanta. And I understand Ulbricht's very good at his job. I respect Ulbricht. I do have questions though. Can you really just design a whole defense around your safeties and linebackers and corners when your edge have just no ability? Again, Watts, Bates, I think they're very good safeties. Bates is kind of hitting that, a little bit long in the tooth element though. Like that guy was a dude a few years ago. Now he's kind of a guy. You got Hughes and Bowman. Diablo's been pretty much the solid linebacker in that defense. I'm and again, very familiar with the defense because, again, him and Ulbricht actually do go back a little bit from the Jets. Ulbricht, they kept him around, right? They liked what he did last year. He came in and helped rejuvenate Raheem Morris's defense, before they kicked Raheem Morris out of town. I don't know. I think the defense is going to be a real problem for them again, and that's kind of been the running issue with Atlanta. But we'll wrap up on one thing that just happened. Defense, I think I'm kind of concerned. That means the offense is going to have to really plow out some games, right? Either grind them out and do ball control or make some explosives. And I think they have the pieces to do it. I think this offense can actually be kind of exciting and explosive because you have, I think it depends. The third round pick has to hit, which is a big rarity, be ahead of schedule in Zachariah Branch. Olamide Zaccheaus can step up a little bit. Maybe Jahan Dotson steps up in a way that maybe we're a little bit excited about. But and Kyle Pitts stuck around. They got him now for the long-term tenure. I like the offensive pieces if they can kind of put some some duct tape over that right tackle spot. And by the way, we're not even talking about the big deal. The big deal is they extended Bijan Robinson, who has played at an exceptional level the last few years. I love it. I love seeing we're finally seeing running backs hit the $20 million a year club again. Well, for the first time, but for the longest time, running backs weren't even getting close to 20. They were lucky if they were getting 15, and it's a 1-year guarantee. Like they were just not getting the numbers, the years, the money. And we heard Bijan brag about, be like, listen, guys, I'm making my money. I'm gonna get. I got a 3-year extension, not a 4-year extension. Hard to get. You got one less year on the deal. That is big. NFL players, that is big, especially for a guy who's going to probably hit free agency or his number's going to come up for free agency when he's 28, which means he will have another chance again at a contract, assuming all things go as well as they look. He sat out a couple of days waiting for the contract to get done. That's not unusual, but he's not the only guy. We've seen Jahmyr Gibbs get I think it was $500,000 more. Just a little bit more, just a little tweak more than Bijan Robinson. To be fair, Bijan made more in his rookie contract because he was picked higher, so it's evening things out. By the way, not the only two guys who got more than $20 million. Remember, for a while it was just Saquon, and that was just kind of like a gift. That was like the Eagles being like, "We won a Super Bowl. Merry Christmas, Saquon," and that was it. They were like, "We're happy with what Saquon did for us, and now we will give back to the Saquon." And now you're seeing, Jahmyr Gibbs just got more than $20 million a year. You saw an extension for Jonathan Taylor where he's getting more than $20 million a year. $20 million a year is now the standard for elite running backs. I think that's fair because as we've seen all these other positions go up, the debate for a while was $15 million a year for an elite running back, and some teams actually would let them walk. And, that made sense 5-10 years ago. $15 million a year when Le'Veon Bell was fighting for 12 to 15, that made sense because you were trying to pay him. At that point, your receivers weren't making as much money. Now you look at what receivers are making and what, there was a market inefficiency in the running back. Right? It was your third wide receiver was being paid $12 million. But if you were signing a star running back, it was $15 million. It make it make sense. If your third wide receiver, and I'm talking about guys like, Myers, like Josh Myers from the Bills and just guys who are backup guys. Not backup, but the third dude on the roster. You need them. You need a guy because they're playing a role. But they don't but they're not stars. Whereas a star running back versus the third wide receiver, I think I would take the star running back and take my shot at trying to draft a dude or develop a dude at third wide receiver. Hard position to be, the third wide receiver guy. You're not getting all the glory. You might have to step up when things aren't working. You have to have a skill set that works. I get it. But I love this. I love this development for running backs. I love it for the players, the people, the position group. And again, I think we will hit a point where it gets to become too much and teams won't want to do it. They don't want to make the commitment. The Todd Gurley element from several years ago where all of a sudden the guy gets injured. Knock on wood, doesn't happen to any of these dudes. But you have that. We got to be more careful with these contracts now. So the NFL is a weapons race, and I think for a little bit, running back was a cheap weapon that you can extend and make money. Again, tight end's been a very similar thing, right? You can make some pretty good money betting on tight ends that are going to be, they're safer. Like, listen, they're not going to get you very rarely are you going to get a 1,500-yard season. Like, you're lucky if you get 1,000 yards out of a tight end. That happens super rarely. I think Evan Ingram had like a season, and Kyle Pitts had a season like that. But it's a rarity to even get 1,000 yards at the tight end, but there's other dynamic elements that it does for your offense. I digress. This Atlanta Falcons team, I think, is going to have a real problem on defense. I think they could be exciting on offense. And I don't know, man. I don't know if Stefanski's going to – I think he'll survive beyond this year, but then they really have to fix that defense going into next year. But where do you think? Where do you think these Falcons are going to land in the NFC South? Do you think they'll be the first? You think they'll be the best? You think they're going to beat the Saints, the Bucks, the Panthers? Or could they be the worst? Could they be the worst? You decide. You can follow the show on podcast. You can follow this show at Draft Vice on Instagram, at Draft Vice _football on Instagram. You can follow me at BROJO. Death is in the end of life. Punch, like a delicious drink you drink in the summer. And you can follow it everywhere else you want. This is the new channel. Stick to the new channel. I got the old channel. Follow the old channel. Subscribe to both. Subscribe everywhere.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous. About the past, about the people.